Now there's one last test I want to add here for the add function, and then we will be done with it. And that's a test where I want to check that it should throw an error if provided with multiple arguments instead of an array. So that's another test I will define here. And there's a good reason for this test. When seeing a function like add, you could think that you can also pass a couple of numbers to it like this, and that then all these numbers would be added together. And that would be reasonable. The add function could be defined such that it would work like this, that it would want and work with multiple parameters. But this add function here isn't. This add function wants an array. And of course you could change it, but this is how it is and how this function was written. So therefore this should actually not work. Instead, since this is some invalid input that's provided, I would expect to get an error if I try to call add like this. So therefore again, I will of course start by arranging this by adding, let's say, num1, which is 1, and then num2, which is 2. And I'm not going to add more numbers because again, we want to keep our test simple. We want to just check with the minimum amount of arguments whether we get an error if multiple arguments are provided. So here I'm expecting to get an error, and therefore again, we have to wrap the function call to add into another function so that we can use toThrow with our expectation. So I have my result function, which holds an arrow function where I call add, and I pass num1 and num2 as multiple arguments here. Now, as a side note, if you would be using TypeScript, this wouldn't even be possible because TypeScript would know that this function only takes one parameter. But with plain JavaScript, you can call a function with multiple arguments even if it just wants one, because JavaScript doesn't know it in the end. Or to be precise, JavaScript is pretty flexible regarding the amount of arguments you're passing in. So here I have my result function then, and then I can expect my result function to throw again. If I now run all my tests again, they all pass because indeed the add function does behave as expected. But I want to add this test so that whenever someone goes back to this add function and changes it, such that it, for example, accepts multiple numbers here, that we immediately see that it was changed in an unintended way, because then some tests might start failing. Actually, this test would still fail even if multiple arguments would be accepted here, because looping through an argument which is not an array would fail, but you get the idea. So that's why you want to add tests like this, and why you want to be thorough about your tests. But always keep in mind that you can add more tests in the future, and of course, ultimately at some point, you want to move on to other units as well. But I'm spending a lot of time here on this first function, the add function, because we're just getting started with testing, and we want to learn all these core and crucial essentials.